than we normally do tonight. Tonight, I would like to introduce Sergeant Scott Lunsford. He is with the Madison County Sheriff's Department and our school resource officer down at Hot Springs Elementary School. And tonight he has the Hot Springs Elementary flag team that will be coming to present colors and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this time, we'll turn it over to Sergeant Scott Lunsford.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you the Hot Springs Elementary School flag team. I'm very proud of it. Too. Hot Springs flag team, attention. Forward, march.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now observe a moment of silence.
Flag team, attention. Set flags.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Good job.
Thank you.
Flag team assemble. Now, forward march. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sergeant. All right. So now, appreciate the Hot Springs Elementary flag team for helping us out with that presentation. And Sergeant Lunsford, we'll now move on to our regular meeting here tonight. And first up is our agenda approval. Gentlemen, the agenda is before you, same agenda that was emailed to you days ago. At this time, I entertain a motion to either approve or amend the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a move that we approve the agenda as was presented to us.
Motion by Commissioner Hensley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Garrison that the agenda be approved. So at this time, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda? All right, our agenda stands approved. Next item up this evening is the consent agenda. That includes our tax refunds and releases, our portable radio public safety answering point program grant project ordinance, our cooperative extension value-added kitchen golden leaf funding grant project ordinance, the Advent Health letter of support, the Madison County Public Schools lottery fund request, and approval of our March 12th regular meeting minutes and our March 26th work session or special meeting minutes. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Chairman Weckel, I move that we approve the consent agenda and the minutes as they've been presented.
So that's a motion by Vice Chairman Garrison. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wyatt. Any discussion? Hearing none, move to a vote. All in favor? The consent agenda passes. Up next is our general public comment, and we don't have anyone signed up for that tonight. So at this time, I will go ahead and open and close public comment in one motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hensley. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Public comment is closed. All right, up next is Rod Honeycutt, County Manager.
Thank you, gentlemen. Gentlemen, we're getting ready to observe Public Telecommunications Safety Week. And at this time, I'd like for Chelsea and Dylan to come forward. Chairman, you have a proclamation that I asked for you to read tonight. If you have it in front of you, should be 4A.
All right, I've got to scroll to it, so bear with me 1 second.
come on up here, guys, since you're standing in front. So while most of us get to enjoy holidays and night times, whenever an emergency happens, we have to call 911. And in front of you are two of our 911 operators.
Go ahead.
It's nice
Thank
to
you.
have a reassuring voice on the other end of that line when you call. This team in front of you represents 13 more individuals that are on the other end of that line when you call. Everybody can't sit in that office and do it. If you imagine 6 screens in front of you, telephones blaring, fire and rescue talking to you, and there's a common voice on the other end of the line. Tonight, I'm asking the chairman to read a resolution recognizing this generation of young leaders for what they do for us. Chairman?
I'm ready when you are. All right.
Yes, sir.
So, whereas emergencies that require law enforcement, fire, or emergency medical services can occur at any time, and whereas the initial first responder, public safety telecommunicators provide a continuous link from those in need to the emergency service providers who will respond to assist, and whereas telecommunicators provide critical life-saving information to the public that saves lives, reduces property damage, and also works to ensure scene safety for those in our police, EMS, and fire department families. And whereas the safety of our law enforcement officers, firefighters, and paramedics depends in part upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained by telecommunicators from people who contacted the Emergency Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are a lifeline for our law enforcement officers, firefighters, and paramedics, monitoring their activities by radio and providing them information to help ensure their safety. And whereas each public safety telecommunicator exhibits compassion, understanding, and professionalism of his or her duties. And whereas telecommunicators spend countless hours taking continuous education classes that keeps up each of their certifications and provides guidance in the ever-changing world around them. And whereas the County of Madison commends the many dedicated public safety telecommunicators whose ongoing contributions help keep our county and residents safe. Now, therefore, the Madison County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim and recognize April 14th through April 20th, 2024 as Public Safety Telecommunicator Week, and calls upon all citizens, community agencies, faith groups, medical facilities, elected leaders, and businesses to increase their efforts to recognize and support all of Madison County's telecommunicators.
Please join me in a round of applause for these great young men. And I feel comfortable if people remain standing. Hannah, come forward, please, take a picture with the group.
And just so you know, they love donuts and pizza and, barbecue. They love all that stuff if anybody wants to carry them anything.
Alright. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Dylan, if you go to the podium.
Thanks, guys.
All right, gentlemen, we celebrated telecommunications last year. You directed the implementation of a public safety board. Oh, Chairman.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, we need, so I've read that into record, and I'll make that in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
So we have a second that the proclamation be approved. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Now it's official. Thank you, guys.
All right, gentlemen, in
Thank you.
conjunction with Public Telecommunications Safety Week, last year, the board directed we stand up a public safety board. And the name of that public safety board is a response to the commissioners on its annual stand-up of items we have undertaken, items we're going to undertake. And tonight I've asked Dylan to come forward as the vice chair of that group to give a quick update. Dylan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. This evening, I'm coming for you, Ross said, to give an update on the Public Safety Advisory Board Committee. We held our first meeting on June 29th of last year, which consisted of getting the committee started by approving the bylaws and the nominations for chairman, vice chair, and secretary. And a roundtable discussion took place with everyone that was in attendance. And what was brought forth was where everyone that contributed in the Public Safety Committee would like to see this committee go and what issues we'd like to see addressed, kind of what goals we had in mind. The next meeting we had was December 28th of last year. We had a change in vice chair take place, which was when I was nominated and put into this role as vice chair. And the hands-on CPR, which has been brought out to the communities in the county, was discussed. And in March of this year, on the 28th, we had another change take place, which was secretary, which now Chelsea Lewis is our board secretary. And a copy of the standard operating guidelines for 911 was brought and given to everyone that's in attendance. And our goal is to start going through that standard operating guideline and familiarizing everybody on the committee of what's in these guidelines and see if there's any areas of improvement so we can make this county safer. As well, I've also been asked to give an update for emergency management. We've had two larger events happen in the county. One of these was a hazmat incident that took place on I-26 on July 20th of last year. It was a result of an overturned tractor and trailer hauling milk, which had made its way into a storm drain on the interstate. Morrisville Fire Department, the Madison Emergency Management, Town of Weaverville, and North Carolina Department of Water Quality worked together. Because due to where the milk went into the storm drain runoff, it affected the water supply for the town of Weaverville. And the calcium is what affects the water supply. It can kill the fish and stuff when it gets into their gills. Department of Water Quality came in, and to my knowledge, there was no effect on the town of Weaverville's water supply, and there was no resulting in major effect to the fish in the stream. On October 31st of last year, we also had another hazmat event that took place in Mars Hill. 911 received a call about a chemical smell in a resident's home. It was later determined that the smell was coming from the restrooms in multiple homes. North Carolina State Emergency Management was contacted, and the Regional Response Task Force, which is located in Asheville, came out to assist. From their findings, the fumes appeared to be petroleum-based. After further investigation, they was unable to locate the source of the smell, and myself and a former emergency services director went up a day later and made contact back with the homeowners and made sure that there was no lingering smells and that everything had cleared out from their homes, and it had. Another update I was asked to give was on the race cars and AED. In a partnership with Madison Medics and the Race Cars Group, Madison County had placed 27 AEDs in Madison County. Each fire department in the county received a new AED as well as an additional AED, which is automated external defibrillator, to be placed into common places in the fire district. So in the event of a cardiac arrest, citizens in the county can go to these common places, retrieve this AED, and put it into use before the fire departments get there to try to increase the survival rates of cardiac arrest. Madison Medics has also been working with the communities to hold hands-only CPR classes, and this is aimed to teach everyone that attends the steps of hands-only CPR, as well as in each of the trucks that Madison Emergency Management has, one AED has been placed into each of the trucks, as well as 4 AEDs have been placed into the sheriff's office's vehicles as well. And a few other AEDs have been placed into other areas in the county and stuff, and the goal is to, if we can get more AEDs, to start placing them in more areas in the county to try to increase the survival rate of cardiac arrest for our citizens. Thank you.
Excellent.
Good, Bill.
Thank you, Dylan.
Appreciate the work.
Thank you.
Good work, brother. All right, up next is item number 5, and that's going to be Chelsea Lewis, our interim 911 emergency management director. And she is going to help present on the emergency management communication tower and equipment improvement plan. Chelsea, the floor is yours.
All right, good evening, commissioners.
Thank you.
For the people that don't know me, I'm Chelsea Lewis. I'm interim emergency services director, and I'm also a part of the Madison County Radio Committee. Tonight I have Benny Gaddy, who is the chairman of our radio committee here, and the representatives from Z-John. They're going to give a presentation on the proposed radio system for Madison County. And Benny is also Deputy Chief at Marshall Fire Department. And we'll go ahead and pass it off to him.
As Benny comes up, also, come on up, Benny. This is also part of the public safety group. So we talk about the radios, we talk about everything that touches each of the departments. So there's actually a good tie-in tonight between all the departments and what Mr. Gaddy's going to present.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you, Chelsea. Mr. Gaddy?
Yes, sir.
How are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
All right.
Feeling more and more confident every minute.
Good deal.
That's good, Chief.
In front of you, you should have a copy of a presentation outline that the radio committee has worked on over a period of time now. We started out with this some 2 years ago, and it kind of didn't flourish, and we got the project going back together again. Got a few people. I was contacted by a few of the commissioners, and we were able to get the committee back together and move forward in doing your research on this project. If you turn over to page 1 in the introduction, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and esteemed members, I want to introduce first of all Todd. He's the engineer for Zetron. Travis Queen, he's one of the vice presidents for Zetron. He is vice president over sales in Western District, is that what?
System sales for.
System sales. Okay, thank you, sir. And then Tom Power, which is with Bryant Enterprises. He would be the one that would be doing our repairs and work on our system if we move forward with this project. The Madison County Radio Committee, which consists of Chris Sawyer, which was a member from EMS, Cody Norton, Chief of Spring Creek Fire Department, Daniel Porche, he's back there in the corner from Madison County Sheriff's Office, myself, and Chelsea Lewis. Is she taking over for Chris as the interim director? So the purpose of this meeting is to request approval to move forward with the new radio project for the county. Review of the past radio system, the overview and the provisions of the system, just so you kind of get a brief rundown, is the equipment is obsolete, number one. It's no longer supported by anything that we have, and it's not designed for the current mission critical public safety users that has to use it. And that's talking about EMS, Sheriff's Office, Fire Department, and it includes everybody in the first responder. And we have poor coverage, which I will get to later on in my presentation. The challenges and limitations faced is the existing coverage for the current system only covers 67% of our county. That means there's only 67%. That means that we're not going to get some areas that's going to be covered as our deputies is traveling down the road, as our EMS is trying to go get a patient, as our fire departments is going down the road. There's times that there's going to be a great break in communication. Number two, sheriff's deputies having to change radio channels, which I've already covered, while they're driving, answering emergency calls, as well as non-emergencies to assist their community. That's a big concern. Dispatch having to switch channels to try to talk to fire. They constantly have to switch so that Laurel Fire Department, Marshall Fire Department, Hot Springs Fire Department, so they can try and communicate with them, and even having that capability is not adequate communication. Having to share the same channel to talk on. The examples that I've got in there is dispatch has to dispatch off one channel. That means EMS has to be on that same channel. The fire department has to be on that channel as well, and other information needs to be passed along that can't be passed along due to units talking over top of one another because we're on one channel. And this is due to having that one operational channel. And 5 is law enforcement falls into the same categories as we do. The evolution of radio technology. Advancements in radio technology over time. Advancements in radio technology changes annually, typically. Now, if you're lucky, if you find a radio or a system of radio that will go longer than a year's time due to having some kind of upgrade on the system that has to be done. 5 years maybe on some of the handheld and the mobile radios that we have before it needs upgrade, or before it possibly will have to go to what we call the radio depot, and parts may be obsolete, maybe even 10 years. So our current system and the advancement on it has surpassed 20 years or better. We were talking at dinner, it's 23 years is how long it's been, excluding the recent advancement in the radio room with the new consoles. You know, that's been the only advancement that we've made. And the consoles that went out were obsolete. There was no parts, they had to be pieced together. Thank goodness we got that done. So some of the impacts on the communication capabilities. It has impacted the system so much by not keeping up with the advancement of technology, we're paying a great price for it now. As you will see later in this presentation, if you keep up with maintenance on the system, just like you would your car or house, you pay a little now, or you pay a whole lot later. Unfortunately, that's kind of where we are. Not staying current with maintenance on the system has taken its toll. So the current state of the radio system, as the assessment of the existing radio system's done, number one, the equipment isn't grounded properly. Equipment isn't attached to anything, it's just lying on tables for the most part. The wiring coming into the building itself is just a big mess. That's where it's coming through the wall. And until the consoles in the radio room were replaced on the grant in 2023, no maintenance had been done on the system for at least 12 years, maybe longer. And we went back and researched that. Strengths and weaknesses of the system, or the SWOT analysis. One of the strengths at this point, the only strength that we have in the upgrade is to the radio room and the new consoles. The other weakness we have, one of the weaknesses we have is the new consoles are great, but with outdated equipment at the tower sites, we can't use them for their full capacity. The other weakness is law, fire, and EMS must swap channels to try to talk to communications, especially law. They must perform it while driving. Number 4 threat there, it's a threat, is for EMS to need help with a critical patient and not be able to communicate because cell phones don't work a lot of times in the areas we're in. Neither does our radio system at this point. Having, you simply can't hear them due to our equipment being so outdated and hasn't been maintained properly. Imagine law enforcement going to a domestic call or pulls the car over and a gun is pulled on them and they open fire on the officer and he can't get on his radio to call for help. Or he has to try to change channels so that he can call to communications while he's fighting for his life. Page 3. Let's be real about this and not get off in a world where we think that it won't happen to us, but it's not. It's not if, it's when. I learned some time ago that in a leadership class that anytime something is low frequency, it's high risk. I've never forgotten it. No one ever thought a ship would bring down the bridge in the Baltimore Bay. There had been hundreds of times ships had passed through and it only took one. Now, let's take a look at our journey toward our improvement. Initiatives and efforts undertaken to improve the radio system. The radio committee was formed. The committee meetings were held to decide how we wanted to proceed and what was going to be the best choice for the county, not only financially, but also operationally. Choosing a vendor that was going to be able to do the work that needed to be done and work alongside of us. And I think we have done a good job in doing that. The decision-making process and how we did it There was a lot of deliberation with potential vendors involving a meticulous grading system encompassing technical capabilities, product reliability, cost effectiveness, customer service, coverage performance, system capability, delivery and implementation, project management, innovation and research, and regulatory compliance. Both companies were graded on a 1 to 5 scale in each of these categories equally by the committee. Some of the factors influencing the decisions regarding the radio system. In deciding on the frequency, we carefully weighed the options, including Viper, B25 UHF, and the existing VHF system. Opting to retain the current system provides flexibility for departments to upgrade equipment gradually, utilizing their budgets judicially. Two prominent companies, Zetron Codan and Motorola, were considered, both renowned for their expertise and track record for service to agencies nationwide. The Viper system was going to require more towers than we could afford, approximately 7 more, meaning we would have to acquire more property for the sites and driving the price up even more. The same with the UHF system, approximately the same towers. So the radio committee felt that it was a lot more than we needed to spend or that we needed to take on. Not to mention, we would have to figure out how that all the county departments were going to be able to afford the radios. If we changed to Viper, a UHF P25, that was another cost potentially incurred. Potentially with the Viper, the UHF 25 radio system, we were looking at 115 mobile radios for vehicles, as well as 307 handheld radios, or portable radios, if you will, to be replaced, along with the potential of putting up 5 to 7 more towers and having to make land purchases for those towers to go on. The land figure is not included in the calculated cost below. 115 mobiles, current cost at $1,300 each is $150,000, just a little less. That's without tax. 307 handheld portable radios for the departments in the county at $800 each is almost $250,000. 5 more towers is an estimated $870,857. That saves the taxpayers of Madison County a grand total of $1,265,957. By not swapping to a whole different radio system or having to buy land to put up other towers and equipment. One other incurred cost of having Viper is having to keep a backup radio system in place if Viper goes down for maintenance. So we'd have to keep a whole other radio. We would have to keep the current system possibly in place, even if we went with a whole new radio system. Vision for the future of the radio system. The vision is to take the current site we have and build off that system. That's what we decided on as the committee, and that's what we did. We chose Zetron Codan as our potential vendor for this project. They have worked endlessly to help us since we chose them, without charging us for the work they have done so far. They came out, checked their sites, seen what work needed to be done, and have built us a system that will work with our current VHF system, which will be a simulcast system with potentially 8 channels and using our current radios that all our agencies have at this time. Now, there will have to be some radio programming that goes on, but Mr. Tom with Northwestern is going to get all that figured out, and that'll all be taken care of. Goals and objectives. Number one goal is to have a system that law, EMS, and fire will be able to operate on safely and provide better service to our citizens. Number two is to have a system that other agencies in the county potentially could expand into in the future, such as our Madison County Transportation, our school system, or our school bus garage, etc. Some of which have been down for years, is my understanding. Number three, to have a system that will cover 94% of our county on a mobile radio, that's a radio in the truck, as opposed to having the 64% coverage that we have now on the current system. To have a system that covers 84% of our county with a handheld radio, as opposed to having 40% coverage on the current system with a handheld radio. Number five is to update all antennas, coaxes, repeaters, extend or replace any towers we have a need for, and housing for equipment for the system. And one thing I failed to put in there is we do have some work that will be coinciding with the U.S. Forest Service on housing and taking care of some of those buildings to house this equipment. They're going to pitch in and help with that part. Budget and resources, allocations of resources for financial considerations. Back sometime last year, we had a few folks that started to work on financial allocations, and I want to take just a little bit of time to recognize them. Commissioner White spoke with a representative from Congressman Edwards' office, telling them we needed possible grants or funding for this project. Lewis Roberts was then tasked with writing letters and answering questions from the congressman's office. Chris Alquiza was then hired as the Director of Communications and Emergency Management, and he took over for Lewis, finished getting the official documents to Congress Edwards' office. Then our county manager, Rod Honeycutt, stayed in contact with the office to track this process. This all turned into the county receiving a grant for a portion of the financial funding for this project, which was $1.5 million. And let me say, I really appreciate all the work that was done for that. To be coupled with $1 million in grant funds that had already been allocated just for this project. Action plan, moving forward, specific steps to take when moving forward. Moving forward, we ask that the commissioners sign this contract with Zetron Codan so we can make this project a reality and possibly up and running by 2025, 2026. This long-time project that so many have worked on in so many ways tirelessly. Responsibilities and timeline, just in brief, with project approval, responsibilities and timelines will fall back on the vendor Zetron Codan, with the project being overseen by the interim communications director, as well as the radio committee, to ensure Zetron Codan holds to its responsibilities and timelines of this project. At this time, I'll open it for discussion.
All right, gentlemen. So we've heard Chief Gaddy's presentation. We've got the folks from Zetron Codan here with us. Commissioner Briggs and I have sat in on the last couple of these meetings. Thank you for the radio committee for extending an invitation to Commissioner Briggs and I to do that. And it was a very eye-opening experience, to say the least. So anybody up here have any questions?
Yeah, I got a few.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
The Viper system that you talked about, we paid for a Viper link last year. Is that strictly just for use for the highway patrol, or are we using that at all? Or
No, emergency management typically uses that. We can use that system. We can use what channels we have with them. We've been approved but we're only approved for those channels. Am I not correct, Dylan?
Madison County has 6 channels. Come up here.
Yeah, come up here.
Yeah. So currently with that Viper link that's placed last year, Madison County has 6 allocated Viper channels. The state also has statewide allocated channels that through a request from the state, I can request for large scale events, as well as when we have helicopters coming in for med flights. They primarily use Viper and stuff for a landing zone channel. The Viper link that we paid for was to tie a more secure link to the communications center to where they have a more reliable source of communicating back to the state on those Viper channels, whereas a handheld or a mobile ain't as reliable.
Before you leave, Dylan, Chief Gaddy, what is the cost of one Viper radio?
$8,000.
Per
One handheld.
per one handheld?
Yeah, for I actually have mine with me, for one handheld like this, which covers the Viper system as well as our current VHF system, which is what I consider a good asset because it keeps from having to have multiple radios carried around by our responders.
And how many of our departments, Dylan, Benny, do you think have a Viper radio? Do all of them have one?
At this time, every fire department in the county has one of these all-band radios as well as 2 of the single-band Viper only handhelds, which was
But if
given
we-
through the Office of EM.
If we went totally with Viper, fire department averaging 15 to 20 members, that'd be $8,000 apiece to get each member a
Yes.
radio, not counting sheriff's office, CMS.
Correct, yes.
And I'll go out on a limb and say if we went to Viper that we're looking, you heard the prices on the towers. If we gotta put those extra 7 towers up, I'd say we'd probably be in the 2, 8, 9, 10.
I was told at one point in time to start a new Viper tower from a open field to a completed tower was upwards of $1 million. So if we had to add 9 towers, we're looking at $9 million, not counting what money's gonna go to our existing tires to get them Viper cables.
So this Viper link that we've got, and we're paying, I guess, yearly for it, would we still need to pay for that, for, I guess, for the highway patrol and the helicopters?
Yeah, there's a channel that's on our communications center that the state 911 board wants us to have called statewide call. And that is for if the phone lines go down, each 911 center in the state has a way of communicating back and forth to make sure the way the 911 system is set up now, if our center goes down with 911 lines, they roll over to Yancey County. And if we have no way of getting a hold of us by phone, the Viper link and the statewide call makes it to where they can holler at us on this channel, tell us what calls are happening in our county, and we can still make sure that we're getting adequate response out to our citizens.
And one more question I had is the timeline. I mean, once we get started, what kind of time are we looking at? I mean, a year, 6 months to get it finished?
I'll direct that over to Mr. Todd. Timeline.
Yeah, we're anticipating about 18 months on the timeline, but what the first thing that we would do would be sit down with all of the stakeholders in Madison County, and from that point, we'd set up a project timeline that was agreed upon from both parties. And it would set all the milestones through the project at that point, so it'd be mutually agreed upon, but I'm anticipating about 18 months.
From start to finish?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and the only unknown in that would be weather. Of course, we're
Right.
doing tower work up towers and things, the weather impacts things and can slow things down.
Sound good?
You're welcome.
I thought one of the things that, I'll chime in real quick, Jeremy, did you have any more questions for him?
No, I'm done.
Okay. So one of the things that we learned in the radio meeting that Bill and I attended, that even our highway patrolmen who rely on Viper through the North Carolina State Highway Patrol, because Viper has so many dead spots in our county, they carry their own personal radios with them so that they can communicate with our people. And that's something that those highway patrolmen, I assume, pay for out of their own pockets. I don't know that to be a fact, but I assume they do.
They do,
Yeah.
some of them may, but us as fire departments usually help them
Gotcha.
in that,
You guys will provide them with a spare radio or
Yeah.
something? Good deal.
Because if we're sharing their help.
Correct.
So,
Understood.
Yeah.
But irregardless, the Viper system in its current state, would not be a viable answer at this time. Am I correct in that assumption?
And it's, no, and it's cost. You know, we have those channels, and we're directed by the state to have those channels, as Dylan said. But to go to that Viper system is not feasible. It's not feasible at all. Cost effective wise, we would have to do so much infrastructure work in trying to figure out where we're gonna literally get the radios. It would be years down the road before every department in this county was able to even get grants to get radios. But did that answer all your questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anybody else have any additional questions for Chief Gaddy?
Benny, which one of these options from Z-Tron does the radio committee support?
I support option, and they do also, option for the 10-year option. Not opposed to the 5-year option, however, the cost savings with the 10-year option is gonna be, I think, more beneficial. I know when we're looking at the number, I think the number that's out there is $113,000 a year. The first year, we got to recognize it's free. The other thing that I'd like for us to look back at too is with other customers, they charge a 4% increase compounded yearly on this service program. So they're not gonna charge us, and we don't get charged that 4%, and it's not gonna be compounded for us. They're doing that as a discount to us. So every year that we have to pay for, the 8 years in between on the 10-year contract will be $113,000 in the change. And then we'll have the first year free and the 10th year for free. And then the 5 will be the same option, it's just we're only getting the 1 year for free.
And that's 1 year from the time that the system goes online, not the time that construction starts.
That is, yes, that's correct.
So we're not, just so y'all know, that we're not gonna be, that free year doesn't get absorbed into the construction time, so that we'll actually recognize the free year.
Can I say one other thing? I think that's the option when you're looking, and I've had a discussion with the field. I wish I'd have got to sit down and talk with all of you, but I've got to talk to some of you. That's the other thing that we were looking at too, is the absorption of that is not gonna be till the project's done, until we accept it, until we're satisfied with it. We give the stamp of approval, me and Chelsea, or us as a radio committee and Chelsea, or Chelsea goes to Rod and says, Rod, we're done with this thing. Z-Tron's met their contract. We're good. Until you hear from that man right there, it's not done, and we're not paying for that. So we've got some time, is what I'm getting at, before that service agreement. However, we do need that service agreement. You know, if you go with a 5-year, it's fine. But I and the committee opt to go with the 10-year program.
And that's an annual contract, it's not all payable all at one time, so.
Absolutely.
As far as the upkeep, or the care plan, whatever you wanna call it. So.
Chief, I appreciate your leadership, first of all, and appreciate the group. It's always nice when there's this doubt that we could never gain stakeholder consensus, but yet we did, and I know that was persistence of all the folks that are represented in the back of the room tonight. It took a lot of work and perseverance, a lot of discussion, maybe even some heated discussion, but at the end of the day, everybody was able to come to a consensus on the direction, the path, the course, and Viper was not a fix-all, and you were able to decide that. And also looking at what's compatible with our existing infrastructure and how we can incorporate that. And looking at the cost, what it costs for fire departments once we go online with the system. At some point down the road, fire and police and EMS are gonna have to phase out radios along life's way, add new employees, and those are at a pretty significant cost when you're talking about, I think the radios we just got through the grant were in fact $8,000 something a piece. So yeah, it's good to see that, the interoperability, simulcast. You know, I think that was a key ingredient from the very get-go. So I'm glad to see that you were able to bring all that to fruition. On the service contract, just to reiterate a quick question on that, We currently spend money each year on maintenance contract. Does anybody have any idea of kind of an estimate of what we're spending as it is already?
Chelsea,
Yeah,
have you?
not that I'm aware of.
Chris had told me, and I do apologize, I should have dug into that. I do know that there is a contract, but I do not know how much it is. But that's something we get an answer back. So that contract, this should supersede it, because that was with a different company.
Exactly.
But it should supersede that.
So the
If that's the
reason I say
question.
that 113,000, I'm not sure if there's been discussion about the allocation of those funds yearly, but, you know, there will be some of that we're already absorbing as it is, so it won't be the total amount. 94%, it'll be interesting to see that, interesting to see how that comes into play. The other question I have is I want to thank, first of all those that were part of it, especially Congressman Edwards, who put forth a lot of effort in Washington DC to gain funding that was significant in the amount of $1.5 million towards this project. And of course, the county has been very judicious in rat holing another $1 million it's been kept in standby to be a part of this. So it's nice to have $2.5 million to move forward with this project. It's because of a lot of people's hard work and management and begging. And that being said, the total contract price is $3,353,000. Do we have plans tentatively as far as the allocation of those funds and the yearly maintenance fee?
Billy, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, it was 20% up front, 50% midway, and then 50% at the end. So
Yeah,
we've got-
there's a 60 in there somewhere, like when it,
10, 60,
everything's
25.
installed.
There you go.
Delivery of equipment.
Yeah. So it's broken up over the period of the system installation itself.
And we're estimating that installation, I believe, to take 18 months, and at the end of that 18-month period or whatever that happens to fall on, then the actual service agreement would kick into place and would extend for 10 years from that point forward. Is that
With the
correct?
first year being paid for, the first year being included in no charge, so I think the first year we actually have to have an installment would be 28.
28 what?
2028. If we get the contract started this year, it takes 25, 26 to get it on board. 27 will be included in the contract. The first payment for the agreement will be 28 for an annual fee.
The reason I say that is in big bold letters, it says for years 2 through 9, with 1 and 10 being at no cost. I just want to clarify what we mean by the years 2 through 9, being the clock starts ticking when the job's done and we move forward.
Yeah. So that would start your first year of no payment, because it's free. And then 2 individually would be start to 113, and then it would go concurrent, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 concurrent, and then 10 would be free. And that's when you'd have to renegotiate the contract.
I know that when this began several years ago, we looked at a lot of different options and had people come in and give us reports and give us assessments. And Zetron wasn't a name that was mentioned at that time. If you could just speak to that in general about who Zetron is, where they're from, and the fact that we looked at other vendors as well, some very local, and the end result was Zetron.
Yes, sir. Zetron, as some of you may know, some of you may not know, are a company that has been around us, Zetron Codan, let me say that. Zetron was actually bought out by Codan. The only thing that I know about Zetron was that the city of Asheville had Zetron for their dispatching system. And that is, at that time, that's all we knew about them. Chris Sawyer and I met with Chris Alkisa, and he was a very honest young man. I said, are you wanting to go with these folks because you know them from your county when they worked on the system? And he said, yes, sir, absolutely. And I said, that's good enough for me at this point, so we'll talk to them. But what a lot of folks don't know is Zetron Codan takes care of all the U.S. Forest Service radio sites across the United States. And they have since like 30, is it back in 39 when they started taking care of it?
Yeah.
So in 39, and have kept them going since that time. So we started doing the research and talking. Several of us have friends that work with the U.S. and ask them if we had any trouble with these folks. So that's some of our research that we did, you know, asking them, and they never had an issue. You know, I didn't know. The other thing with them is as soon as Chris called them, they were on the plane to come here. And they missed flights meeting with us to go back home the first time they ever met with us. The night that we called and told them that we were, that we wanted to choose them to go with the system, we talked to Motorola and we talked to them. We asked them both the same question. Chris did. He asked Motorola what they would do. Could they give us any pricing? And we were told if we chose them, yes, they would help us out. I said, we can't go to this meeting without that. We asked Zetron and they said, when do you want us to get on the plane? So they came here, they've looked at all of our tower sites. They have Todd Kane, he's the engineer on this team. He came and measured all the sites. He even taught me some stuff that was here about radio systems and towers and things of that nature. Measured all of our buildings, has flown back and forth, stayed on the phone, been willing to do have any kind of meeting we needed to have. Paco has been in Japan for his vacation. He's a sales manager, and he's rung my phone off the hook. He's texted me and, you know, just worried that hoping that they got everything right that they needed to, and got all the information here. So, just wonderful. I'm sorry I don't have more information. I can get them to speak into it, but they've been really good to work with us. Tom, like I say, has been on board. It's been a great effort from them helping us as a radio committee do this.
So if a tower goes down, something happens, two questions really. One is, you've answered some of that, not just Forest Service, but they've also done work for the city of Asheville, any other in West North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, North Georgia?
Yes. Yes, sir. All those areas that you're mentioning. So with Tom, he has one of the guys that works with him for him lives at Jupiter Barnesville exit, and that was one of the choices that we wanted. We wanted to be able to have somebody that was going to be close on site if we had something go down. The first Zoom meeting that I ever had with Todd and Paco, that was one of the questions that we asked them. Dylan and I and Chris was on that meeting, and we were like, we want somebody that's going to be there. We don't want to have to wait 24 to 48 hours if there's an issue in the radio room. And they told us we could choose who we wanted to, as a matter of fact. But it just worked out that one of the guys that works for Tom is right here local. The other thing to add into this is they will train us. Like, we could send our folks to get trained out. They pay for the training, they pay to keep you up, they pay to get you there, and they train you and they send you back. So we thought that might be another advantage. We have a couple of people in the county, whether it be our IT people, or whether it be a couple of people out in the radio room, or whether it be a couple of people off the radio committee, maybe somebody from the sheriff's office, somebody from the county fire department, whoever, and send them to get trained, you know, to work on the system. So we've got somebody right there up front that can truly recognize an issue before they call somebody up and get a service charge.
That's the second part of the question is, do they have someone local? Modicom goes down. Now, the Modicoms are ours. You know, that's something that we've recently updated. Modicom goes down at 3 a.m. Do we have a number we can call, and is that part of the
Yes.
agreement?
And Tom is just over the line in Tennessee also, so he can be here in a short time if Darren needs him to come. That's absolutely covered.
And on the maintenance contract, is that parts and labor, or is that just
It is.
labor? So
It's parts, labor, everything is included on that. And Tom just reminded me that tonight. Go ahead, Tom.
We're also staging spares here in the county.
Yeah, so there'll be spare stuff that'll be staged here in the county also with it.
And it's sort of my takeaway from one of the meetings was that it's sort of a plug and play type system. If a component goes down, basically our IT guy or whoever we have trained to work on the system goes out, pops out the defective unit, pops in the new unit, and you're pretty much instantly back online once that happens.
Absolutely.
And I will just say my takeaway from it, and correct me if I'm wrong, my takeaway from the meetings I attended was that Motorola wanted to sell us a package.
Yes,
Zetron is building us a system.
yes.
And
That's correct.
I think that was, I think the noticeable difference that I saw was the difference between trying to sell us a pre-designed package versus designing us our own individual system unique to our needs for our geographical challenges that we have here.
And even speaking into that, so we were staring $4 million in the face, easy.
Yeah.
I had a discussion with Matthew, he had asked me about it, I said, I don't know preliminary pricing, but I can tell you that we're staring at $4 million, over $4 million. And it was kind of funny because Paco, the sales guy, calls me and says, hey, he said, you got just a minute? And I said, yes, sir. He said, you know, you was kidding around about that being $4 million? And I said, yes, sir. He said, it's $4 million and some change. So when I tell you that they've worked with us, you can see where we're down to. Take the maintenance package aside, but you see what we're down to. We're not, you know, they could have walked in here, and I'm sure any other company would, and said, hey, you know, it is what it is. We're gonna give you, you know, this is what we've got for you, you're either gonna have to take it or leave. But they worked to try to get to where they got to.
Well, just one more follow-up question on maintenance and service. Let's say we need, let's say we have our radio systems getting a bleed over. Not that that's ever happened, and we heard somebody dealing in an entirely another state, but, and so that requires a diagnostics. Is that part of the maintenance agreement?
Yeah. And
Because it may not be our equipment, it may not be the problem. You know, it may be someone else's equipment that's causing
And
the
Ty,
bleed over.
we're online, so no one online can hear what you're saying unless you're at the podium.
Okay, no, that would be part of the agreement, and also up front, we're working with the county for frequency coordination on new licenses with the FCC, and that would guarantee that you do not have that. And plus, the filtering system that we'll design for it, once we know what the frequencies are, will also go to eliminate all of that. So we're going to do
Filter them
everything
out.
up front that we can to eliminate any of those kind of problems.
Excellent, thank you.
Benny, I'm sorry, Michael.
No, that's good, go ahead.
Benny, are you under the impression that, well, I shouldn't say impression, but the 10-year contract versus the 5-year contract, if you done simple math, the 10-year contract comes out the better price per year?
It does come out a better price per year. If you figure the 4% of the first year you're gonna pay, and then you compound that, I think it's, what is it? $80,000 more, is that right? Is it? I mean, I went to North Buncombe, so, and I didn't go to App State, but I
We'll
went
ask
for
Jer-
one.
we'll ask
I'm just saying,
Jeremy.
yeah, I think it was somewhere, Ben Waldo was running the numbers earlier, and I think it was, what did we come up with for that first year? Do you have it still in your noggin? Well, he went to Madison, so, but yeah, what was your question again? I'm sorry.
Never mind.
You got it. Did I answer your question?
Is there cost savings to go with a 10-year
Yes.
maintenance program instead of a 5-year?
Yes, there would be cost savings.
That 4% escalator is what you're saving.
Yes.
You're locking in at that rate, and you avoid the 4% escalator annually.
And you get, like Jeremy just said, you get another year for free too.
Right. And you hit to 2 years.
And being the skeptic that I am, It ain't free, it's included in the price, but ain't nothing free.
I had that
I
discussion
understand.
with these guys, so.
But
Yeah.
it's all good.
Yeah.
That's why if
So-
you guys see me smirk every time somebody says free, that's what it is. What it is. It's-
Well, you smirked over my quarter and noticed I left it out when I said that, so. All right, sorry. I gotta get back to my professional self.
It's all good.
So, anybody else got any questions?
I'm good.
And just for the record, the price is $2.9 million.
Yes, yes, sir. That's for the
For
system
those of you
itself.
that are keeping score in the room or
Yeah.
wondering at home,
Yeah.
the price is 2.9. We have 2.5 already accessible for the project.
I was wondering about that.
Yep.
Yeah, so one thing that I would like to mention also is, before they started working on this, because we had, as a committee, had told them where we felt that we needed to be. Before they started working on this was well over, not well over, but it was about $3.5 million. You know, and then they started cutting. Started cutting. So they've worked tirelessly to get us discounts and everything they could.
And just for clarification, they started cutting price, not services.
Not
or
services,
options.
yes, correct.
So I don't want anybody to be
Yeah,
under
yeah,
the
no, no.
misperception that we
No,
we negotiated a substandard system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They started working on price. When they asked us, you know, how do you feel about this? And we were all like, no, not even for us. I mean, even if they had looked at us and said, we can't do it for this, we would have had to race and start all back over again. It'd have been we just don't feel like we can go above this and, you know, so that's where it needed to be.
And this is a system for police, fire, EMS, Marsville, Marshall, Hot Springs, Madison County, probation, anybody that gets online with it. And is it fair to say that we've had an EMS person shot in this county? And that we've had officers involved in shootouts in this county? So it's not a matter of if or when, it's a matter of already has?
Yep.
And the system is expandable to a point to where if transportation, the county public transportation vans could access the network, because they experience the same outages that all of our first responders experienced. And even more importantly is the school bus system. The school system would have the opportunity to connect into the system as well, to where they could enhance communications for school buses, because they also, we got to realize our county is, I think, 550 some odd square miles. 460. I'm sorry. Anyway. Yeah, we're gonna wing it. So around 500 square miles. Let's just say that. How's that? And we've got only 2/3 that are covered currently. Only 2/3 are covered, and we've operated that way for decades. But the world isn't the same as it has been for the last decades that we've lived.
Yeah.
And it's important that if we can increase this to near 95%, somewhere in that ballpark of coverage. And for the geographical challenges that we have, that's pretty daggone good.
Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, you need a motion to,
At this time, if you guys are ready, I would entertain a motion that we approve the contract.
So Jim, I'm gonna ask you to wait until we
Okay.
have the 1.5 million secured from Congress.
Okay.
And it'll be the next 4 weeks, but I asked that myself or one of the other guys from the radio committee to come back, and we make that once we have the funds available. And just for rough order of math, be 290,000 in the first payment, be 1.7 million at the 60% mark, and 870,000 in that last payment. And I think we gotta be prudent and have the money in hand before we enter into the contract. So it'll be the next 4 weeks, but tonight was just to give you information, so we can move forward
Okay.
as we get that money.
I see our county attorney nodding in my peripheral vision.
If you
so-
could bring between you and Madam Finance Director, bring a plan of action as far as,
Yes, sir.
not just the making up the difference, but also the annual cost as well.
Can I say one more thing?
Certainly.
I want to thank all the guys and the women in the back for coming tonight and their support. Commissioner Garrison mentioned the paramedic that was shot. I was on that call that night, and it was a very helpless feeling when the radios didn't communicate quite like we wanted it to. And we were trying to save that woman's life and trying to, I mean, we're volunteer firemen and we're trying to hold down a person with a gun. We're not sheriff's office, and that was the situation that we were in at that time until sheriff's office arrives to assist us. And we've all those people you see in the back have been in situations where the radio just wasn't working, and tense situations, and I know Chief Garrison's been in those situations. So as Chief Gaddy said, there's no amount of money worth any of those guys in the back that's serving to protect you all, the citizen. No life. You can't put a price on that. So I just want to thank you firefighters and EMS, 911, Sheriff's Office for all that you do and for your support and what you do for this community.
I'd like to say one thing in conclusion. I want to extend my gratitude to the committee members. I've made a lot of good friends on this journey, people that I didn't know so well, and some people I did know well, and I've got to know them a whole lot better, and it's been good. It's been real good for their dedication, their cooperation throughout this whole endeavor, and it's been an honor to serve as the chairman of this committee, and I'm confident that our efforts will culminate in a robust and reliable radio system for the benefit of the community. And that's from myself and the radio committee. Commissioners, thank you.
I'm just curious, and this is probably a question for Zito back there, or Zetron. Compared to a flat county, eastern part of North Carolina, what's the cost difference in getting them 100% coverage than it is a mountain county? I know we live in the best county in North Carolina, and it costs us.
Well, in reality, getting full coverage or up to 100% coverage is just all theoretical. It comes to a point to a decision that would be your decision on how much do I want to spend to gain those extra few percentage points. And that's regardless of if the county's flat or it's mountainous. They all have their individual problems. And the one thing that does help is the frequency that you chose to be in. So maintaining VHF has greater coverage than UHF and 700, 800 megahertz. If you had moved up to 700, 800 megahertz, realistically, to get the same coverage for the county, you're looking at probably close to 20 tower sites to do it. So VHF, you just get really the better coverage. For this county, that was really the best solution.
That was a huge topic of discussion originally, even with other entities, was trying to move us to 700 and 800 because that's what everybody else had, and going to Viper, knowing full well the wavelength difference would destroy our communication capabilities without additional towers. That's a point well noted.
Yeah, we just need to get the right folks. Can I ask one question? Can we have verification, please, on what we're doing while we're waiting on the vote on this, so that everybody else will know? I understand it thoroughly. I know why we're waiting.
So right now, we got $1 million set aside. We have $1.5 million pending from the Appropriations Committee that has been approved, but it's got to be moved from federal funds to the state funds to us. Once that approval happens, we'll bring it back to the commissioners for them to vote on the contract and moving forward.
And that'll be in 4 weeks.
Don't hold me to 4 weeks.
Well,
We
yeah.
anticipate
It
it
is
to
the
be.
federal government, I understand, I understand.
Just so clarification, our taxes are due April 15th.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
exactly.
and there's very little leeway on that one, so.
All right.
All right, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Z-Tron guys. We appreciate y'all very much.
We're gonna exit the building probably, I'm burning up.
I think Kerry got a hold of the thermostat.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
That was a very wise direction.
Yes, sir, thank you.
I thought we had. Same thing.
Pretty good. All right, we'll give, I think everything's down to a low rumble now. So we will move on with our agenda. Next is item number 6, which is public hearing for proposed residential agricultural rezoning. And this is item 6, and up to, I think he's gonna be with us for the next couple here, is Brad Goof.
Hopefully it'll be fast.
All right.
We'll see. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we have a recommendation for you all to consider tonight from the Planning Board. They recommended unanimously that you rezone parcel number 9769871970 on Holland Creek Road from retail business to residential agriculture. And you do have a staff findings report in your packet, as well as the actual zoning map amendment resolution to rezone this property.
All right, so we now have our presentation completed, and we had public comment. No one signed up for public comment on this topic prior to the meeting beginning, but in line with our public comment rules, we will open the floor up to request, is there anyone here this evening that wishes to participate in public comment on this specific topic and this specific topic only? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion that public comment be closed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Garrison, second by Commissioner Hensley. Any discussion? All in favor of closing public comment? All right. So we will now move on to the discussion phase, and that's discussion among this board. So, gentlemen, any questions for Director Goof?
Brad, it's just RB moving back to RA, and it's in a rural community on Holland Creek.
Yes, sir.
I just note, for the sake of the board, page 88, section C, that is not applicable. The wording there is from a previous document.
Why was this RB to start with? Because that water
I think there had been a business on this property for a while, and they had.
There actually still is adjoining property.
Yep.
Property's been parceled out, I guess. I have nothing further.
I don't know.
I don't even,
Bill?
No,
All right.
thank you.
So at this time, I will entertain a motion that we honor the planning board's recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we go ahead and approve the planning board's recommendation on this.
That's a motion by Commissioner Hensley. Is there a second?
second.
Second by Commissioner Wyatt. Any discussion?
Could I ask one question?
Yes, sir, Mr. Attorney.
Is there a plan consistency statement?
There is in their packet,
So
and
it
it's
is
also
in-
in the amendment resolution that they're adopting.
Okay, just let the minutes reflect that the board has considered the plan consistency statement also.
And gentlemen, that's on page 84 at the bottom. Outlined in the 2030 Madison County Comprehensive Plan. Good question, though, Donnie. Thank you.
And for the record, we need to, Brad, wouldn't hurt when you do, on your presentation on your next ones that you address, just go ahead and address that plan consistency if you don't care. All right? So we have a motion, and we're still in discussion phase. Wait a minute. back up here. We have motion second. Did we actually, we hadn't done a vote yet?
No.
Because Donnie jumped in, right?
I jumped
Okay.
in.
So is there any additional discussion at this time? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor? All right, it is approved. All right, up next.
All right, Mr. Chairman and Board of Commissioners, we have a second application. This is a application from Bream Salome to rezone PIN number 9747240970 on Stone Cottage Road. And he's asking for a rezoning from RA to RB. And this was recommended by the planning board for approval as well. However, it was a split vote. We had one that voted against the recommendation and then one abstained because of a conflict of interest. And you'll see my staff report in your packet, as well as the zoning map amendment resolution that shows the actual zoning map amendment, the consistency with the comprehensive plan, and the reasonableness and public interest in the rezoning.
Brad, is it correct to say that this is part of that larger tract where the store and everything's at? And
Perception-wise, if you drove by this, you would not see a distinction between this parcel and the one adjoining it. And that's the idea behind the property owner and wanting to ultimately combine the parcels for a use for RV.
And it does open up opportunities in RB that would not be otherwise available.
And just for my personal knowledge, or well, I mean for any of us, but I'm not clear on it. Is this, if we're looking at the front of the station, are we talking the property, if we're staring at the front, are we talking the vacant lot to the right?
The car.
Or are we talking the car lot?
The car lot.
The car lot, okay.
Yes, there is a parcel that's part of that car lot that is this parcel.
Yeah, and I looked it up on the map, it looks like where it's already RB's like 2.45 acres, and this, what we're talking about is just 0.75
Yes, sir.
acres.
There used to be a business on the other end of Stone Cottage.
On the other end of Stone
Yeah,
Cottage?
when you don't turn the first right, you go to the second, you're going from Mars
Yes,
to
sir.
Mars, yeah.
Okay. So, we've got our presentation from Director Guth at this time. At this time, we will go to, we've got public comment scheduled. Again, no one has signed up to talk on this specific topic, but commensurate with our rules that we have for public comment on public hearings, I will open the floor up. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in public comment in regards to this specific proposal? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion public comment be closed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Wyatt, second by Commissioner Hensley. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote to close public comment. All in favor? All right, public comment on this topic is closed at this time. Now this opens up for board discussion. Bill, did you have anything else you wanted to mention about that or anything?
This just used to be a business, I don't know when it was rezoned. It doesn't matter, it's on the other end.
I got you. All right, any additional discussion from this board?
No, sir.
All right, then at this time, I would entertain a motion that we approve the planning board's recommendation.
I so move in that resolution for PIN number 9747-24-0970.
Second.
And that is to go from residential agriculture to retail business. Motion by Vice Chairman Garrison, and the second from Commissioner Hensley. Any discussion? Hearing none, move to a vote. All in favor? All right, and now we've got one more. This will be a public hearing on proposed amendments to the Madison County Land Use Ordinance. And this is Director Guth once again.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, We've been working on this, as you all know, for quite a while. We've had numerous public hearings on this with the planning board. We've had a work group of planning board members and staff that have been working on these drafts. I do want to say up front is that these are amendments for our ordinance. We do not have a biomass facility that is interested in locating in our community. These are so that we'll have the correct rules and regulations in place if that time did come. But I do just want to mention that we don't have anybody or any applicants for a biomass facility in the county currently. We do have a number of definitions that we're adding, as well as land use districts. We're looking at both the industrial districts for large biomass facilities, and then there would be a special use in that, as well as a special use in the AO, which is agricultural space, residential agriculture, RA, commercial C, and retail business districts would permit small biomass facilities through a special use permit process. We have added special requirements outlining specific standards and requirements for biomass facilities, including compatibility with surrounding areas, public health and safety standards, environmental impact consideration, traffic and parking management, and more. And of course, they're all in place to ensure that Madison County's goals for sustainable development, environmental protection, and community well-being they align with those. So I can go through some of these specific amendments if you would like me to, or if you've had an opportunity to review them and have questions about them, we can do that. Just, Mr. Chairman, let me know how you'd like us to proceed with this, if you'd like to take.
Yeah, that's fine. We can address any of that in our discussion phase, but first we have public comment on the calendar, on the schedule here, or on the agenda, I should say. So at this time, I will open the floor to public comment. We do have some people signed up for this, and first on the list, and I will ask, be sure you go to the podium and make it to the podium before you start talking, because online no one can hear you until you get picked up by that podium mic. And for the record, please state who you are and what community you live in. And the first one that signed up is Elaine Robbins. Thank you, Elaine.
Hi, I'm Elaine Robbins. I live in Rector Corner. Wanted to first thank the planning board. I thought they did a really nice job considering us at their meeting. And I had some technical questions, which I tried to send in a little flurry of emails. Briefly, the small biomass facility, if it ends with "or" on the different clauses, if you had one, a large one that had a few employees, you have defined it as both a large and a small one, which would be confusing. So if you change all of the "ors" under the definition of small biomass facility, then everything that's large from one of them will be large, and if it's all small, it'll be small. So I would recommend you do that. There's no defined term of temporary biomass. Doesn't really add anything. You can take that out on page 2.
Elaine, if you don't mind, take your papers off of the mic.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Not ready for prime time.
It's okay, no problem. I want everybody to be able to hear you. I don't want you to be, I don't want it to be distracting.
And then you have a great requirement for a site plan at page 4, 8.11.4.2. There are requirements at 8.11.9 and 8.11.10 that have broader geographic reach than the site plan you asked for, so you might want to have those made consistent. I have 2 policy points that I would like to make. I would argue against letting there be any biomass facilities, even small. Thank you for the small, and thank you for all the requirements. But I don't think there's any need for any biomass facilities to be allowed in anything but an industrial area. I think that most of our citizens would be really unhappy, although glad you have requirements, to have one plunked next to them. And I don't know that there's really much advantage, given all the requirements, to having that. So I would argue against having any biomass out in the places where folks mostly live. If you do have it out in the places where folks mostly live, I saw a provision in your cell tower ordinance which requires renewal. And I would argue that especially or only for the small biomass out where folks live, it would be really nice to have a requirement that they have to re-up their permit every so many years, 3 years, 5 years. And the reason I am so adamant about the importance of that is I've seen so many of our hearings where folks come in and the plant hasn't been in operation, the use hasn't been in operation. They're trying to tell you what it's going to do to their neighborhood, and they can't. Because one, they can't afford a traffic, they can't afford a real estate appraiser. They just found out about it. They don't have the resources. They can't afford a lawyer. And they're trying to project what's going to happen from something that hasn't ever happened yet.
Time's up. Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Up next on the sign-up list is Carl Batchelder. Carl? And just for the record, everybody's got 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name's Carl Batchelder. I live over in Redmond. I attended most of the planning board hearings, and I've read over the drafts and everything, and it never fails. You pick it up and read it again, and you see something. So earlier this week, I opened up the latest draft, and just to recap, you got large biomass and small biomass, and there are thresholds for how much product it produces, how much power it generates, and there's like a red line. You cross it and you're no longer small, you're large. And nothing wrong with that, but there's a section that, one second while I page down here.
Page 2.
Where it's tied to districts. Chapter 3, it says a large biomass facility, you need a special use permit, and it goes in the industrial zone. That's fine. And it says the small or temporary goes in basically all the other districts as possible. Agricultural open, residential ag, and you need a special use permit. But I'm envisioning a plant that is a fairly large small plant, and it doesn't cross the threshold to large. The way it's written, that plant can't go in the industrial zone because it's not large. So rather than to force a case like that to find a piece of residential property if they were interested in citing it, I would recommend that that under the establishments of districts for a small and temporary biomass, in addition to AORA, just also add industrial. So a site like that can be cited in the industrial zone. That's all.
Very good. Thanks, sir. All right. Next up on our sign-up list is Jim Tibbetts. Mr. Tibbetts, please step up to the podium.
I'm Jim Tibbetts from Marshall, and first of all, I just wanted to say what an excellent job the planning board has done the last year and a half on defining these rules. They've really listened to the community a lot, and here just these last 2 meetings, they were able to make some good decisions and changes to the recommended rules that you're looking at tonight. And I imagine you're in a hurry to pass these tonight because the moratorium is about to expire. So if I had 2 pieces of advice for you, one would be what Elaine referred to with the small biomass facility. And if you look at 1, 2, and 3, it ends with the word or. So if you don't change that to and, it's if it has 5,000 tons a year or 10,000 megawatts or 50 employees or it's $10 million, If it's any one of those, then it's okay. It seems like it would have to be all of them to qualify. So if you change that to and, then if any of those, it hits any of those targets, it's considered a large plant. And I think that's really important because we worked really hard on this definition, and that's a one-word change that you all can make tonight. And the other one is what Carl brought up, and not to dismiss Elaine's comments at all, I just don't know if there's time to really put the time into that. But the other one would be to change and add industrial zone to small plant. That's it. I think we've got some really good rules here, and again, I appreciate the planning board so much for their efforts on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And the last person that has signed up is Maxine Ramsey. Ms. Ramsey? She left? Okay. So, commensurate to our rules that we have here for public comment, we'll open the floor up if there's anyone else here that would like to address this specific issue and this specific issue only. Please rise and make your way to the podium.
The judge things come down.
The rise part? Should I start hitting the gavel? All right, so seeing none and hearing none, at this time I'll entertain a motion that public comment be closed. Motion by Commissioner Hensley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wyatt. Any discussion? The vote currently is to close public comment. All in favor? Public comment is closed. So this time we now go to our board discussion. And anybody have any comments that we care to address?
Well, I have a couple. One is, luckily this isn't as complicated as we feared it would be, because I have the same concern tonight as I always do, and that's that I get a packet on Friday for a request I made in January that we have opportunity to engage in this process somewhere along the way, and at least have a pretty good idea of what we're going to be looking at before the Friday before. So hopefully we will get better about that. The second thing is, Brad, explain to me biomass. We have a place in Madison County that does compost. We have, what others? Is a sawmill biomass? Is
forestry.
Under our definition, wood pellets and converting any of those biomass materials to energy would be biomass. So that's the only two things that biomass is regulated in with this particular ordinance. And that's changed at the last planning board meeting. One of the changes that we made was to restrict all the different things like compost facilities that could have been regulated or were regulated as it was before. Sawmills, those type of things, they're not regulated under this.
So we're talking wood pellets, the hog farm down east, it's a biomass facility with swine waste, those kind of things. That's all.
If they use those for generating energy, they would be.
Right.
Wood pellets, if they produce them, yes, that would be regulated with this.
So I have a question about, it does seem logical that if we define large biomass facility and a small biomass facility, we don't define what is a temporary biomass facility. And I'm not exactly sure what a temporary biomass facility would be. For example, would that be,
Sure.
Let's say I go to the local fast food shack and get their oil and convert it into diesel fuel for my tractor. Is that a temporary biomass facility? Is that small biomass? What is that?
If you're converting those things into energy and you're on a site and you're doing that temporarily, for example, there's a cogenerator that you could use at a sawmill, for instance. That would be where the byproduct of the sawmill is sawdust and particles that you would put in this co-generator, and it would generate energy and heat. So that would be that could be a temporary use. It could also be a permanent.
So with that same logic, if I've got a wood pellet burning stove, I buy the oil, I have it delivered, and I run the co-generator, what's the difference between that?
You're
and my
generating
pellet
that, you're generating energy from that,
from the wood
from
burning
the-
pellet stove?
that wouldn't be regulated with this. The pellet production would be, you know, if you were creating wood pellets for generating in for your stove, so the stove would be regulated.
So if I've got an oil burning truck and I go to Asheville and pick up 10 gallons of vegetable oil, I can burn it, and I'm creating energy for the vehicle, but that's understood that that's not creating energy to be sold, or what's your?
Yeah, that would not be regulated with this.
This doesn't affect, for example, I know we've got several mechanic shops in the county that have waste oil furnaces. The used motor oil, transmission fluid, that sort of thing that they collect from vehicles, they then burn for heat in their facility. We're not splitting hairs and calling that biomass, correct?
Well, first off, if they're already existing, this wouldn't apply to them anyway.
I understand.
Because they're in existing use.
The question's been asked of me, so I'm asking the question of you.
But I would not think that that would be something that would necessarily be regulated.
I appreciate the feedback. We get a lot of chain emails. It's the same thing. It just clutters up my email. But once in a while, I get something that actually has some substance to it. And for those folks that sent something with some substance, I enjoyed reading it. It was informational. And so I think we can apply some of those same things and some of the things that we even heard from Carla and Elaine tonight for consideration. One of the things was, Brad, under 8.11.4.6, properties, it references properties within 100 yards. But if you look at 811.9, it talks about 400 feet from a residence.
Yes,
and look at maybe some consistency on those. If it's going to impact the residence at 400 feet, then it would seem logical that, you know, the plan would have to include more than just 100 yards.
And I did do a update for that particular.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Just as a point of cleaning that up a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Do we have to number that?
That looks good.
Yeah.
I think it's worth a discussion on the and/or. It does appear that it potentially could open up a
And/or's box.
well, a box of discussion that you meet one of those, but you don't have to meet them all. So I'm not sure. Could you maybe talk to that just a
Well,
little bit?
that's not exactly something that I really, of course, Elaine did talk to me about it. I'm not sure that I interpreted it the same way as she did. But, because what my understanding of how it was presented was that if it doesn't meet any of those 4 items for a large biomass facility, then it would be a small biomass facility.
So say that again now.
1 through 4 are criteria. It's got to meet one of the 4 for it to matter.
But the argument that we heard from the public tonight was if you do and, they have to hit all 4, correct?
And we're saying 1 out of the 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with all that. I just wanted to hear the discussion on which is more appropriate.
And I think unless I wrote something down wrong, I think Jim and Elaine were saying the same thing, but arguing different sides of it. Right?
I probably
We agree.
misstated it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jim and Elaine agree?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's what I had, that you guys were, that both of you are saying it should be and not or.
Right.
It's over, thank you.
There are two sets of four.
No, it's over, thank you.
But Brad, my question is you could buy these, wood pellet processing mills online or wherever. So if somebody's doing it for personal use, just to, burn in their wood stove, that don't count in this, right?
This is a commercial. You can see the thresholds in terms of what we're looking at.
Well, I figured that, but when these guys was asking these questions about burning in their wood stove, you know, you just saying that it would. So-
Well, I was curious too, Jeremy, along with what you're saying. But I don't know what 5,000 metric ton. I'm glad you put a reference point that says, you know, if it's under that, then, you know, you're good to go. But I didn't know what 5,000 metric tons of that looks like. So that's a pretty large quantity.
Well, I mean, a ton would be less than 5,000 metric tons. I mean, if I get 5 ton of sawdust to put through my wood pellet mill to burn in my own personal wood stove, that has nothing to do with this. Okay, that's what I was getting at.
And even that, a small biomass facility would not be restricted to an industrial site only, correct? That it could go through the permitting process and be zoned
It would not be restricted to,
an industrial site?
It's not an option for it to go into an industrial site, correct,
yeah,
currently?
correct,
Right.
that is correct.
That's
Right
part of
now-
the argument on small
Right
versus-
now, the way that it's worded is those would have to go into one of the other districts.
Right.
And we can certainly add the industrial.
As an
I
option.
think that's a good point.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think, Mr. Batchelder made a very good point with that, for sure. At the very least, you know,
Make it an option.
It should be an option, so. There's no reason to prevent it from being an option, I guess is what I'm better stated in saying.
I would agree.
One more question I've got and I'll be done. So you can use soybeans is considered a byproduct, right? Biomass, if they use soybeans?
Soybeans?
Yeah.
So I don't understand the context.
Well,
of how-
it's an agricultural crop that uses a
Right,
biomass.
that-
So what I'm saying is, what if a farmer that's farmed all his life starts raising soybeans and he puts in a wood pellet mill to turn his soybeans into pellets? Is that considered under this, or does he get a farm exemption?
Typically, he would have a farm exemption because farm and agriculture uses are exempt from the zoning ordinance and zoning ordinances in North Carolina. Now, if it's not determined to be a farm use, he would fall under the zoning ordinance. So you can't just, your example would seem pretty logical that yes, he would be exempt from that because it's a farm product, soybeans he's growing. But there are situations where there are businesses that you can't just set up because you have an exemption as a farmer. That you can't just decide you want to go into auto mechanics and say, I own a farm and I'm doing this on my farm, so I'm exempt from the zoning ordinance. You wouldn't be exempt because that's not a farm related.
It's not a farming operation.
Correct.
Well, I just noticed it, I mean, it says agricultural crops in this, and I was just trying to how we gonna find the difference between a farm and a biomass facility.
Brad, just for the record, because you've noted it on page 108 of ours, that these ordinance amendments are recognized as consistent with the Madison County Comprehensive Plan.
Yes, sir. And again, you know, we don't have any current applicants for this, so it would apply to folks in the future.
This may be splitting hairs or whatever, just out of curiosity, Brad. I think you've answered some of the questions. Forestry, logging, sawmills, is not affected by this? If they're not producing,
Energy or turning it into wood pellets.
right. So, another question I have, just out of curiosity, I went to a factory up in Minnesota that makes windows. Wonderful facility, been there for hundreds of years. The way they heated that building, when they would cut the wood for the wood jams, the sawdust from that wood went into a vacuum and was run to their furnace. to
That would be,
heat.
that would be an example of being regulated, because that's generating energy for them.
Now say that again?
I said, I would think that that would be a regulated industry, because that's one of those situations where you have a co-generator generating energy for that facility.
Okay. It wouldn't hinder a company from coming here.
Oh, no, they would just have to be regulated by this particular aspect of the ordinance.
Cool.
Brett, I appreciate all your work on it. Appreciate you
Yes, sir.
bringing it to our attention. It needed to be dealt with, and appreciate all those that were involved in bringing forth I may eat my words down last road, but it's what seems like to be a pretty cut and dry, but very condensed ordinance that doesn't impact an extremely large number of entities. It focuses on where most people's concerns were.
Yes.
So I'm glad for those last few meetings. Sound like they were hugely productive. I have nothing further.
So, before we proceed to consider approval, I think we need to state very clearly what changes we expect to be made, if any. I think we had consensus on the small biomass facility having the option to go into industrial. I think we need to have a definition for a temporary biomass facility.
Or we could strike that from the,
And you have just
Small.
large and small, no temporary. Okay. What's the will of the board on that?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Just strike it?
Just strike it.
So everything has to be it has to fall into large or small category. No reason, I think there's no reason to muddy the waters on that, so I'm cool with that. Let's see, do we,
He's already made the changes on the 400
you know,
and or.
yeah, are we moving forward with changing the ors to ands, or do we want them to remain as ors?
I'm good with leaving them with or.
Me too.
Is there any desire to change those to and?
Donnie, from a legal standpoint, it captures it. If it captures one, it captures it. No different.
If it captures one, then it's going, with the ors, it's going to be a small biomass facility, in my opinion.
Leave it move.
If we keep it at or,
If you keep it at all.
in your legal opinion, okay? All right.
I mean, what that would do, that would make more uses subject to the small biomass facility. So I think it would expand the use of the ordinance. If you make it or, it means, and you just need one of them to come subject to the ordinance.
Okay. I think I understand. I think I'm tracking you on this. Okay. All right. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion that we approve as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I may move that we approve the zoning and board's recommendation of the biomass facility as amended
Okay.
to the land use ordinance.
Motion by Commissioner Hensley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wyatt. Any additional discussion at this time? Hearing no, move to a vote. All in favor? Passes as amended.
And just one more comment, keep in mind that this is ordinance that can be amended as needed, just like our noise ordinance was amended and things that we thought were perfect fine, realized situationally that things could change, so we can amend it.
That's good, Brad. Excellent. Thank you, Brad. All right. Thank you for everybody's participation in that. Item number 9 this evening is Ross Young, Project Manager, in regards to Public Service Complex Design and Build Firm Recommendation. Hello, Ross.
Hello. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. If my calculations are correct, 5,000 metric tons is 11 million pounds plus. If that helps you.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thank you.
That's not why I'm here. But good evening. As you guys know, you all set up a working group of about 8 individuals to dig into what we call the new courthouse, the public service complex, some time ago. And I'm representing tonight that group. The new courthouse working group has issued an RFQ for design build services for the Madison County Public Services Complex. After 2 rounds of advertisement, 2 firms responded, Benoit and Haskell Construction.
Excuse me, can I just ask something? I don't believe that this board actually set that committee up as a subcommittee.
It's a working group.
It's an internal work group.
It's an internal working group, and the only reason I want to make that clear, that if this board had established it, then that board would have to comply with all the requirements of the open meetings law. So I think if we can just clarify that committee was a committee that was
It says work group in the.
Administrative.
It says work group.
Thank you for that clarity.
That's okay, I just wanted to do that so that Mandy wouldn't start worrying whether we had minutes and notices for that. I'm sorry, Ross.
No, you're fine. I love all the clarity. This is a group effort, so thank you very much. Each member of the new courthouse work group committee evaluated the submitted qualifications independently and scored each based on a predetermined matrix evaluating 4 categories. Categories were the firm itself, their response to our objectives, their experience doing similar projects, and their ability to meet our schedule. The scores from these individual evaluations rated Haskell at 95% and Benoit at 88%. The second phase of this process involved a structured presentation interview session where our working group listened to each firm give a formal presentation followed by a question and answer session. The working group came to a consensus and is recommending Haskell Construction to deliver the design build services for the public services complex. Therefore, the work group requests approval from this board to begin negotiations for a public services complex design build delivery agreement between Madison County and Haskell Construction. On completion, if approved, of a legal review, the work group will present a design build agreement for commissioners' consideration during a future meeting, most likely the May meeting.
So, Ross, since this come out, I've had lots of questions on this, and, you know, this is probably the biggest project that Madison County has ever faced. And, you know, 3 of us has only been in this a year, and these other 2, they've been on the commissioner board, but they've never faced any project like this before. And, you know, I just don't feel comfortable with putting the burden of a $40+ million decision on a work group. You know, we are the elected officials, and I think that we need to, and nothing against these 2 contractors, but I think that we need to back up and punt on this. I think that we need to reject this recommendation and start over on this process again. and also take the burden off that work group and put it on us. So I make a move that we reject the Haskell recommendation from the work group, and I make, in that same move, I make that we, as a commissioner board, make the decisions on this project.
I second that motion.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Hensley, a second by Commissioner Briggs. Is there any discussion?
Can I ask for a clarification?
Certainly.
Before you vote? So the statute, I think, the RFQ will allow a rejection of all of the bids if you want to do that. Mr. Hensley, is that what you were, is that the motion, the clarification that?
Yes,
all of them be rejected?
That we reject it and start over.
And issue a new RFQ?
And issue a new RFQ.
With different criteria?
With different criterias and us making the decision.
The evaluators?
Yes.
Of that, okay.
Yes.
And I think with those modifications, I think you are clearly within the parameters of the RFQ as well as the statute to take that action.
Need another second?
No, I think the clarification from the county attorney, I think, is sufficient for that, is it not?
Yes, I think if the motion and the second is consistent with that clarification and there's no modifications to that, then I think it's ready for your discussion.
So we have a motion and a second as amended. Is there any discussion at this time? So my discussion obviously would be, and not to split hairs at all, but we're looking at probably a $60 million project.
Well, I didn't want to put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, realistically,
I say 40 plus, I think.
Yeah, we're looking at probably a $60 million project. And I understand the sentiment that this board of elected individuals be the ones that either deserve to get the glory or the blame for that. So, and not to, you know, pawn off a difficult decision onto county staff. I understand exactly where you're coming from there. So. Is there any additional discussion at this time? Bill?
You said it good.
All right, good. Well, hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor? All right. It is done. So we will start the RFQ process over again. And we need to provide direction to our county attorney, I guess, as to how.
I think consistent with the motion was to, after working with your county manager and probably his feedback from the staff, is that if there's anything that needs to be changed in the criteria, which is how you evaluate the proposals that you receive. If you want to make those modifications in RFQ, then the county manager can bring some criteria to consideration in an RFQ, and then I think you need to put in the RFQ that the evaluators will be the board, and you can do that. And then if there is anything else, I think that the committee or Ross or the county manager has thought that would be more beneficial in having a RFQ that might answer some of the questions that you learned in this process. You may want to modify the RFQ in that manner. I know these people have worked very hard in in that process. We've been under sort of some time limitations in wanting to get this out so that we could get the funding done. And I want us to all remember, this is the first design bill that Madison County has attempted in a construction project, at least in the last 13 years, and I believe it's the first time they've ever done it ever. And
As far
this
as
is
I
the
know, it
biggest
is.
project that we've ever undertaken, so I can understand Mr. Hensley's concern, and if we do this, let's cover every base out there and disseminate this project. I know that the county manager did get a list and sent it to everybody that we thought would be interested, and in all those efforts, we submitted it twice, and we got, what, 2 bids the first time and 2 bids the second time.
Right, sir.
So, you know, we may want to see if there's anybody else out there that we missed the first time. That the more we have to choose from, probably the better the field, and we'll have to select someone. So.
Very good. All right, item number 10 is Carrie Ledford, Finance Officer. Thank you, Ross.
So good evening, gentlemen. So before you find for your approval, item A, which is budget amendment number 10. This amendment records the revenue brought in by donation from the Friends of the Library for the library. Also recording donations to the animal shelter, along with the Wilkinson's Foundation grant in the amount of $4,000. Also reporting revenue interest allocated to your Parks and Rec Department for dugout repairs at the ball field, as well as Parks and Rec, the strategic plan. And note the transfer from the Register of Deeds Automation Fund for the purchase of a new server in the amount of $6,500. We've also received additional opioid settlement funds in the amount of $30,145.81, bringing the total in that fund to date at $515,575. Here too is the recording of the additional revenue generated by the quarter cent sales tax in the amount of $58,471.53. All of these amendments are pending approval.
And this amendment does not add to or take away from contingency, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to budget amendment number 10 be approved as submitted.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner White, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hensley. Any discussion? Hearing none, move to a vote. All in favor? Budget amendment is approved.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next is item B, which is March's financial reports. You'll see that, you'll know we are 75% of the way through FY '24 for the budget year. And on the second page, you'll see for our general fund, we've received 81.17% of our revenue, and our expenses are at 61.93.
We still feel good about where we're headed?
Yes, sir.
You under the weather?
Yes, I am.
I'm sorry. Sorry to keep you here.
That's okay.
Thought you sounded a little bit stopped up. Colonel, pass that on to you.
No comment.
All right, anybody have any questions in regards to this month's financial reports?
I don't have none.
All right, I think we're done.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate you sticking it out, Carrie. Made me feel good.
All right, up next is item number 11, our county manager report.
All right, gentlemen, now we've got board vacancy reports. First, we have Board of Adjustment. You got 1 vacancy and 3 applications.
So we have a vacancy as a result of a resignation. That would be that individual had previously been appointed to serve a 1-year term. So we would be appointing someone to serve out the balance of that term at this time. And at this time, based on a request from the Board of Adjustments, I would recommend that we move up Ernie Ramsey from an alternate to serve out the remaining one-year term of the individual that resigned. I'll make that in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wyatt. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All right.
Gentlemen, next is 2 Board of Health vacancies. The first one being for a citizen. You have 3 applications with the existing person, correction, 4 applications with the person in there still sitting.
Commissioner Hensley, you serve on that board. Does the board have a recommendation?
Not as I know of. But, I mean, I guess we can, I'll move that we put, Ms. Conway back on it.
Reappoint
Yeah.
Cheryl Conway?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Hensley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wyatt. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, move to a vote. All in favor?
Gentlemen's next Board of Health vacancy for veterinarian, 1 application for the existing veterinarian on the board.
Chairman Whipple, I made a recommendation last month that we hold that open pending additional applicants. And I'm still making that same recommendation.
Second.
So just to clarify, your motion to table that position?
Correct.
So motion by by Vice Chairman Garrison, sorry, to table that appointment. Is there, and the second was Commissioner Hensley, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any additional, or any discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor? All right, that position's tabled.
Gentlemen, next is the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. The Crime Prevention Council is not seeking to fill that position.
Okay.
The last one is the Mountain Area Workforce Development Board with 1 vacancy and 1 application.
All right, so we
Somebody
have,
that works for French Broad Electric.
yeah, we have, the only applicant for that open position has been Sam Hutchins at French Broad Electric. I'll make that in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Garrison. Any discussion? Hearing none, move to a vote. All in favor? All right. We do have Colonel, the Land of Sky.
Delegate.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay.
That's the final Land of Sky delegate. Minority previously held by the county zoning director is currently, per Land of Sky, see attached. I think you have 1 application.
We do. That individual is Sherry Perry, who is our, oh my gosh, the official title. She's,
Not senior citizen, is it?
no, it's, she's our representative for North Carolina Senior Tar Heel delegation. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Mandy. So, at this time, I will make that form of motion that we put Sherry Perry in that position as a minority delegate member at large to represent Madison County on the Land of Sky Board of Delegates. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Garrison. Any discussion? Hearing none, move to a vote. All in favor? I believe, is that all, Colonel?
That's it. Gentlemen, so your
Hey.
question?
Anything else?
Since we moved Ernie off the, an alternate, do we not need to replace Ernie on the, as an alternate on the Board of Adjustments?
You do need to do that. That can either be brought back to you next month, or if you have someone that you think you would like to recommend this month, you can certainly go ahead and do that if that's the will of the board.
There are other applications to consider if you, we can entertain that if you'd like.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint David Witt as an alternate to that Board of Adjustments.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Hensley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Briggs. Any discussion?
Mr. Witt is a native of Spring Creek and currently resides in the Mars Hill, Wolf Laurel sector, so.
All right. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, move to a vote. All in favor? All right. I believe that's everything now, correct, Colonel?
That's it. Gentlemen, sir, if your questions are guidance.
Any other topics? This time I'll entertain motion, we adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Hensley, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Garrison. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? We stand adjourned.